Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We're getting ready to start Unit 3, Lesson 1. We're going to be solving quadratics by factoring. So we have in the past factored. We know that this is the difference of two squares right here. So that we're just going to go ahead and factor that, a plus 6 and a subtract 6. But now we're going to add equals 0. And what that means is that by solving by factoring means that we're going to find out what makes this true. What can we substitute for a in each one of the factors to make that a true statement? Well, this becomes true if our first factor, a plus 6, is equal to 0, or if the other one, a minus 6, is equal to 0. I don't know what's going on with this thing. Okay, so we're going to say a plus 6 equals 0 and when a minus 6 equals 0. All right, so this first side becomes true when a is equal to negative 6. It's also true when a is equal to a positive 6. And we're just going to put a little box around there. Okay, we factored before. We're going to just really quickly run through this. So when we factor, we are really taking the coefficient of the quadratic term, and we're taking the third term, which is the constant term. We're multiplying them together. So far, we've been dealing with a coefficient of 1. So we've been getting like negative 14 and negative 36. So negative 14, factors of 14 are 1 and 14 and 2 and 7. How we determine which signs go with what is that we look at our middle term here. Whichever sign it is belongs to the larger of the two. The negative 14 and the negative 7. Okay, then we look at this one, determine if both are going to be negative or both are going to be positive. If it is negative, then because we're doing multiplication, one has to be a positive, the other one must be negative. All right, the only two that when combined will give me a negative 5 is the 2 and the 7. So we're going to write that as the terms of n plus 2 and n subtract 7 equals 0. Each term is set to 0, 0, and n subtract 0 equals 0. All right, this one's true when n equals negative 2, and this one's true when n equals 7. Put a box around your answers. All right, need to move this just a little bit. Okay. All right, so we now have coefficients other than 1. So let's go ahead, and we're still going to multiply those two together. That gives me a negative 4. Okay, factors of 4 are 1 and 4 and 2 and 2. My middle term is negative, so it's either going to be a negative 4 and a negative 2. My last number is a negative, so that means my other one must be positive. All right, the only one that makes sense or truth is the positive 1 and the negative 4. So what we're going to do is that we are going to take this term right here, and we're going to rewrite it as 1v plus a negative 4v. Okay, that's what we're doing. All right, so 2v squared plus 1v subtract 4v subtract 2 equals 0. All right, we're just going to take two of the terms together. We'll see what they have in common. All right, so in this case, we have not a 2. We just have a v, because both of them have a v in common. So let's take the v out. What that leaves me with is 2v, and it leaves me with 1. All right, we're going to take the last 2 out, these two right here, and both of them have a negative 2. 2 leaves me with a v. Oops, I forgot about that. 2 goes into 4 2 times, leaves me with a v, and negative 2 goes into negative 2, leaves me with a positive 1 equals 0. When you are done, whatever is in the parentheses must match. Okay? If they don't, please look what's going on with either your signs or make sure that you have divided out what you need to correctly. All right, so I'm going to rewrite this so what's in the blue parentheses is rewritten, and what's on the outside is going to go in another set of parentheses. Those are our factors. we now solve for b. All right, so we got 2b plus 1 equals 0. I have to subtract 1 from both sides, so that leaves me with 2b equals negative 1. And that means if I divide by 2, we would have b equals negative 1/2. And we have b subtract 2 equals 0. This one is true when b is equal to 2. And again, please put a box around your answers. All right, go ahead and look at number 4. Again, we're taking 2 times 2, we get 4. We still have our factors over here, but in this case, it's going to be positive 4. And the only way for that to work is, well, let's go ahead and write it out here. 4. We get 1 and 4 and 2 and 2. Sign is negative. Well, for that to be true, for that to be a positive 2, that would also have to be a negative, okay? Also, the only way to get a negative 5 is if both of them are negative, because I can't get any more factors out of 4. All right, so we're going to rewrite this as 2x squared, subtract 1x, subtract 4x, plus 2. And again, it's going to take 2 factors. Get these first 2. And what they have in common is just x. What's left over when I divide an x out is a 2x. What's left over is a negative 1. All right, then we're going to look at these 2 factors. And what they have in common is 2. So just a plain old 2. Actually, let's make it a negative 2. Because what's that going to leave me with is 2x. And when I take a negative 2 and divide into a positive 2, I get a negative 1. And again, remember those things in the parentheses must be exactly alike. 2x subtract 1. What's left over is x subtract 2. And that should be equal to 0. All right, that's going to be equal to 0. Come over here, make each term equal to 0. So 2x subtract 1 equals 0. And x subtract 2 equals 0. All right, we're going to move the 1 to the opposite side. That means it's a positive 1 now. And we divide by 2. So x would be a positive 1 divided by 2. Make this 0 by adding 2, so x equals 2. Put a box around your answers. All right, so far we have had 0 on the right-hand side. If you have something like number 5, we need to get it to equal to 0. So what we're going to do is we will add 6 to both sides, put it back in standard form, and that's going to be, I'm going to change color here. So now I'm going to have x squared subtract 5x. When I add 6 to both sides, it gives me a positive 6 equals 0. We're going to factor as normal. Okay, so that's the only thing we have to do differently on this, is that if it is not in standard form, we move it in standard form and then we factor as normal. Okay, all right, so let me move this up, because I want to get to some of these other ones that are a little more complicated. All right. All right. Number 7. Okay, now we got the 4K. 4K is on the wrong side now. And I'm going to make that pen just a little bit thicker. I like the thicker pens. All right. So again, we're going to take, oops, not too thick now. So now we have k squared. We're going to subtract 4k from both sides, and we're going to add 4. And that's going to equal 0. All right, 1 times 4 gives me 4. I'm going to have a 1 and 4 and 2 and 2. Sign is negative, so negative and negative. All right, well, I need that to be a positive. So this one's going to be a negative and a negative. So the ones we're going to do this time is negative 2 and negative 2. So we're going to have k squared. Okay, come on, erase please. K subtract 2 times k subtract 2 equals 0. All right, this is a perfect square binomial, and there's no sense in setting each factor equal to 0. I mean, it's ridiculous because they're both the same. So in this case, the only thing that makes that true is that k would be equal to 2. Okay? All right, so now let's go ahead and do this next one. P squared. I'm going to add 2p. I'm going to add 3. Factors of 3 are 1 and 3. I mean, that's all there is to it. Sign of this means that's a positive. Oops, and I keep on doing that. That's supposed to be a negative 3. And then one, there's going to be a negative. So we're going to have p, subtract 1, and p plus 3 equals 0. So p equals 1, or p equals negative 3. All right. Let's move that just a little bit. All right, so now we're at number 9. We're going to have 6x squared. We're going to subtract our 7x to get it on the other side. Plus 3 equals 0. We're going to take the 6 and the 3, multiply those together. That gives me 18. All right, 18 factors are 1 and 18, 2 and 9, and 3 and 6. Larger sign gets the negative, so negative, negative, negative. And the only ones that can conceivably add together to give us the right one would be, is that right? Would be 2 and 9. But that is again a negative 3. Keep on doing that. Oops. Negative 3. All right, so the only way for that to happen is if this one's a positive. So we're going to take 6x squared plus 2x minus 9x, subtract 3 equals 0. We're going to take our first two factors and take out a 2x. Leaves us with 3x plus 1. The last two factors, oops, did not leave myself any room, did I? We have a negative 3 in common. Both have an 3x is left over, and plus 1 equals 0. So now we have 3x plus 1 equals 0. Oops, not yet. We will get to that step next. Times 2x subtract 3 equals 0. Okay, we are going to have some fractions on these. So 3x plus 1 equals 0. We subtract 1, get 3x equals negative 1, and x is going to equal negative 1/3. And you're going to have 2x, subtract 3 equals 0. We're going to add 3, so it's going to give us 2x equals 3. Divide by 2, x equals 3/2. That's perfectly allowed. Okay, so that basically gives us what we have or what we will need for our notes.